Pop Culture is Dumb. Hosted by Zach Eagles and Jackson Miller.
Welcome to Pop Culture is Dumb. I'm your host, Zach Eagles, and with me, as always, is Jackson Miller. Jackson.
Hey, Zach. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right. It's a nice, cold, wintry day.
We
just got through the
cold
holidays.
Out. Yeah. Did you have a nice New Year's Eve?
I did. It was a good time.
Are you ready for a big year?
I'm ready. I'm looking forward to the year ahead. It is, the first? Is it today the first?
Today's the second.
Second? Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Unless you're listening to this and it's not the second.
Yeah.
In which case, it's whatever day you're listening to it.
Yeah. Same. Everything's live nowadays.
So today, we are talking about one of the greatest comedy duos in entertainment history.
Not bad.
Not Laurel and Hardy. Not
Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah. Well, okay.
They're pretty good. I rewatched them up at
Not
Christmas Carol.
Sandler and
Schneider. Whatever other failed SNL buddy you would throw with him. Yes, Sandler and Steve Buscemi. The very acclaimed duo. Steve Buscemi, of course, mostly known for his comedy roles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Seth Rogen and James Franco. And
we'll play the audio clip of one of their classic lines.
Play it right here and play.
Someone once asked me what my favorite color was. I get that all the time.
Oh, such a good line.
Memorable.
Well,
I'm sure you'll be able to come up with something to put in there.
Obviously, the two of them are pretty big right now in the news for The Interview.
Yes, getting very topical. The Interview, for anyone who's listening to this years from now and I'm assuming no one will remember The Interview by that point. Well, not necessarily
unless it's the breaking point between North Korea and the United States.
Unless you're currently listening to this in a nuclear winter.
Yeah.
And World War III broke out.
Learning about it in the history classes. And this was the film that ruined everything.
Birth of a Nation and The Interview are like the two seminal American films. No, but The Interview is the Seth Rogen, James Franco collaboration. The third one they've done after Pineapple Express, and this is the end. That's centered around like an assassination plot for North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, which was relevant in the news because threats from North Korea and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, hack of Sony potentially by North Korea caused Sony, depending on whose story you listen to, Sony and the theaters or the theaters and then Sony to pull out from showing the film. And that set off a whole bunch of, I guess we Americans got very upset about that because I guess that's the thing that we won't stand for. Well,
that's where we draw the line.
Yeah, we draw the line not at TSA or NSA or anything like that, but as soon as they take out some forgettable stoner comedy, we lose our minds. So.
And that's kind of where I think I want to start. I mean, I know you just mentioned the other movies, Pineapple Express, and This Is the End, and of course, Freaks and Geeks also, that they both, started in, I guess. But I'd like to start with The Interview because I think that the whole plot about how North Korea maybe hacked it, into Sony or whatever, I think that part's really interesting. But to me, more the interesting part of this whole story is how media has sort of evolved now to where The Interview, like you said, you watched The Interview. I haven't seen it yet, but where did you watch The Interview?
Yeah, I'd heard that since it was pulled out of theaters, they were trying to do a digital release to make some of their money back. And so I watched it just on YouTube. You could just buy it. I want to say it was $6. So that was I thought that was a great deal. Is that I wouldn't have normally been that interested in seeing this movie. But I knew it was something we'd probably want to try and cover. And I've liked some other stuff in the past. So I just got it for about $6. It was, a third the price of 2 movie tickets. So it was an easy date night. Rented it and then watched it on YouTube. Over a Chromecast, so I had my own little home theater experience.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I've seen. I was looking at a list earlier this morning about all the different places that it's being shown. I mean, it's not on Netflix or I don't think it's on Hulu Plus or anything like that.
It's supposed to have it's supposed to go up on Netflix at a certain date, or they were talking about that at least, but I'm assuming that hasn't happened yet because it was not last night.
And I'm sure it probably will sooner or later, but I think it's just so fascinating how it's not in the major movie chain,
And I have some numbers that were,
nice.
I guess, kind of, yeah, like you were saying, this is showing a big change in what's happened. Like if this happened 6 years ago, there was a movie that was pulled similarly, there'd be way less kind of avenues for them to try and make their money back or stream it or sell it on video on demand or anything like that. Because I know Sony sold it on video on demand too. But so I kind of was thinking, well, this isn't necessarily like the best movie ever to do it with, but this is a mid-profile movie that was made high profile and now can kind of, it got all this extra publicity. It could be a good like test case for digital release, like same day release as a viable platform. But, and these numbers were as of Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. So this is about a week later, but opening weekend. This was the opening weekend numbers. Movie had a $44 million budget, which isn't too absurd to compare it to their previous movies. This Is the End had a $32 million budget, and Pineapple Express had a $25 million budget. So they've steadily crept up over the years. So $44 million. It only opened in about 500 and something theaters, which is a lot less than normal. And as a result, they only made $1.8 million in those theaters. It was projected that if it had had a standard theatrical release, they would have made their budget back opening weekend, which would have been great, for them. But since they sold it digitally, and they sold it, I don't know if the $6 price was standard everywhere, but that was the YouTube price. So I was very hopeful. I didn't necessarily expect the movie would be some incredible comedic art piece or anything like that, but I was hopeful that it would be a success being released digitally, and then we could see. I just want some way where we can eventually see digital sales of movies where you don't have to use Vudu or use any sort of like iTunes or any other proprietary player. Just make it easier for people to pay. Because I was like, well, if it's easier for people to buy, it'll kind of be like, I don't know if it's totally healthy, but the way the music industry's gone, now there's a lot more avenues to buy digital versions, and a lot of them are DRM free and everything like that. But it only made $15 million digitally in its opening weekend, which is a little disappointing. It means they did not make their budget back, and that was with all the hype of the opening weekend, with it being pretty easily available, at least in the United States. So the projections are that unless it gets a full theatrical release, they're not going to make their money back.
Wow. At
least in the standard box office way. And perhaps the most disheartening part was that by Christmas Day, it had been pirated 900,000 times, which goes to show you that even though it's incredibly easily available, it's $6 on YouTube, 900,000 people, at least at that point, still pirated it.
Wow.
Which was disappointing. I was very disappointed in I guess the pirates for doing that, because it's $6.
And the funny thing is about this whole movie is, and I haven't seen it again, but you have, so you should talk about this, but it's probably just like any other just kind of like comedy. It's not, it's not like 12 Years a Slave or something, like something that is fascinating and, beautiful. This is just some stupid, like...
It's a dumpster comedy. It was kind of... watching the opening scene, I thought it was pretty entertaining. The plot of the movie, James Franco is a talk show host. He's like an Entertainment Tonight or whatever type host. Just does light entertainment news. So they have on all their celebrities, and they do this thing in the movie that I don't love, where they just bring in all these celebrities for cameos and show like, here's him talking to Beyonce, and they make all these pop culture references,
which is pretty much the whole like plot of This Is the End. It's just nonstop cameos.
Excited for that. No, despite having a podcast called Pop Culture's Dumb, I hate movies that are nothing but pop culture references, because that means they have no shelf life. When you watch it 10 years from now, it's going to seem incredibly dated. But they open the scene, so it's talk show. He's interviewing Eminem. Eminem comes out as gay just very casually during the conversation, and so it opens well, and they're reacting to it. It's just pretty entertaining. But from then on, it is pretty standard kind of their movie. If you've seen Pineapple Express, similar jokes. No, there's not pot humor, I don't think, at all. This one, which is
surprising,
perhaps surprising, but they have. I guess on the whole, if you've seen any of their other stuff and you've enjoyed it, it's pretty much what you're expecting getting into.
Right.
They use some interesting stuff with Kim Jong-un. I guess I'll avoid specific spoilers, but where they kind of defy your expectations a little bit from what you'd be anticipating to happen. They have, some gross out gags, but on the whole, it's worth watching. They do a good job, like they did in Pineapple Express, of kind of combining action with comedy,
right?
Where the action isn't completely farcical. Like, it's not like James Franco or whatever is just gunning down it's not like the troops are completely helpless like the enemy troops. There's some danger presented.
But all in all, it's just any other just kind of comedy sort of. There's nothing that special about it or anything.
Yeah, if this was a movie that if they hadn't pulled it out of theaters, I don't think anyone would have been talking about it.
And that's kind of why, I haven't even really bothered watching it yet, just because, I don't know, I just don't care enough, I guess. But
you're not an American, Zach.
I guess not.
Not doing
and that's the funny thing, I saw my grandpa on Christmas Eve, and he said, he was asking me, if I've heard about all the Sony hacks and stuff, and I said, yeah, and he's like, I really want to see that movie. That's how I was just like, yeah, well, you're a patriot, of course you do.
Yeah, I was kind of, maybe it was being cynical, but I was kind of thinking at first, before all, I guess, the other news of the Sony hack broke out, I was like, is this just a publicity stunt for this movie?
Right.
Up until they got pulled out of theaters,
so
I kind of thought it was a publicity stunt.
Well, and I think there was even stuff going around that it was some kind of inside hack or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
Although I just saw this morning that the U.S. has sanctions now over North Korea or something, because I don't know. I guess they're accusing them now of hacking. So
yeah, and
I don't really know what happened.
Shake itself out, but
I'm sure eventually somebody will. Yeah, like you said, and it's going to shake itself out eventually. But
because the last I'd heard is that again, it was some sort of inside Sony hack, which would make it a lot easier to explain how they could take all that data and everything. But
I don't know. There's probably no way that James Franco and Seth Rogen saw this coming, really. I guess, but I don't know. It's just funny, and I found this other article that is just insane, actually, but. There's some kind of activist in South Korea who is saying that starting in January, he's going to start dropping 100,000 DVDs and USBs into North Korea.
I did hear this, yeah.
So that that's insane.
I apparently they do this kind of thing often in North Korea or South Korea to kind of, I guess, wake them up or whatever. But yeah, this will be. I very much feel sorry for, or I'd be interested to see the reaction of any North Korean citizen who. Maybe they've heard rumors about this movie, about how this is some American propaganda piece or something like that, and they watch it, and for the first 45 minutes, it's just this dumb American comedy with almost no references to North Korea at all. And then for about the first 2/3 of the movie, they make Kim Jong-un sympathetic. Because I guess the plot point, it'll be a mild spoiler, is that he kind of woos James Franco, and they become friends. I don't know if it's a send up of the Dennis Rodman thing or not, but where he went over and
why don't we just send Dennis Rodman over there just to clear all this up?
Yeah, I kind of thought maybe it'll come out 20 years from now that this was just an adaptation of the Dennis Rodman reality. He was sent over to try and poison him, and things went wrong or something like that. But I will say there are if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's worth watching this movie because there's some very, very overt jokes about Lord of the Rings where James Franco just keeps comparing. He just keeps bringing it up and saying that Seth Rogen's character is the Sam to his Frodo, and he does that several times. And then it pays off at the end of the movie in a much less subtle way. Those are very ham-fisted references, but by the end of it, there's a really good little. I'm not sure if everyone will catch it immediately, but if you do, it's
well. They have let's get into that a little bit. Franco and Rogen's real life relationship, without obviously being sexual orientation involved or anything, I know it's all comedy. Okay, so you've seen the Bound 2 music video.
I watched Bound 2,
3,
yeah.
I think is what they call it. But
I watched the side-by-side comparison to the original.
And to me, it was kind of what was the point of that?
I thought...
It's funny, yeah, but it's almost just why? They weren't promoting their film or anything, right?
It's just two guys having a good time. I kind of, as I was watching it, I kind of thought, well, this is funny that, haha, isn't Seth Rogen gross looking?
Right, yeah.
But then I kind of was just more mesmerized by the Bound 2 video, and I was like, this is already bad and jarring enough. Did it really need a full-length parody? But I'll give them credit for, especially if they aren't promoting anything. If that's just
and
something
did you see the
fun.
Naked and Afraid?
I watched the Naked and Afraid, having never watched the show Naked and Afraid, but having seen trailers and kind of thinking that this is very Idiocracy moment, that this is a show that's really on air. But I thought it was good. I liked once they started kind of breaking the fourth wall with the production stuff, where they were talking to the cameraman and Fred the cameraman when they were I think they were discussing to drink some water that was very brown and possibly poisonous. And they're like, we're not supposed to talk to the camera guy. And they started yelling at Fred, the cameraman, like, should we drink this? And like, you can see his face. We can see his face. Tell us if we should drink this. I thought it had its moments for a 14-minute segment.
The thing that I like about their relationship that I think is just, really funny is that they have known each other for so long. And grow. And I mean, it's almost like they literally like kind of grew up together, And let's talk about Freaks and Geeks a little bit.
Freaks and Geeks was great. Well, yeah, they built their chemistry, and that's definitely shown. That's probably the best part of watching the interview is some of the writing, the jokes, don't always work, but they still have a really good chemistry and they work really well together. And yeah, Freaks and Geeks was, I don't know the year, early '90s. I was young. I was a kid watching it.
Yeah.
My family and I watched it when it came out for whatever reason. And it was, a season or two? And it got canceled?
I think it was canceled after maybe one season.
Yeah, because it has maybe like 12 episodes or so. But if you go back and watch it, it's on Netflix.
Right.
It definitely has a cult like following now.
Yeah,
But it's easy to find, and it still holds up. And it had a lot of people that are bigger now. Had James Franco, obviously, Seth Rogen, Jason Segel. And then a bunch of like kind of guys you see as background characters in some of the movies.
Martin Starr and I don't remember the.
I was gonna say he's the main one. That one of the other geeks showed up, and I want to say 40-Year-Old Virgin. He was like Sam Neill's friend.
Oh,
that name's not right, I don't think. But those are the four main guys that went on to do anything. But it was at the time it was they cast, part of what made it so interesting is that those people were pretty much the right age. They were high school, middle school, high school aged people playing that role, which was a nice change from every other show that's tried to cast high schoolers using 30-year-olds and everything like that. But
Seth Rogen in that show always just seemed like so like awkward to me.
Part of the charm was that they weren't great actors by that point at all.
Right.
They seemed believable. Seth Rogen was always very awkward.
Right, and that was the thing. I mean, it just seemed so believable, their characters and everything. And Franco, to me, was the best thing in that show.
Franco showed the most, and I think out of all those, he's probably definitely proven himself as the most capable, dramatic actor.
Right,
and he showed that some. And
did he win Best Actor for 127 Hours?
I couldn't tell if he did, but
I don't remember. I know he was definitely nominated, but
I would have liked to see Seth Rogen doing that. Maybe that would have been entertaining.
And that was the other thing. I haven't seen it or anything, but I wrote down The Sound and the Fury that James Franco just directed and starred in, and I guess he casted Seth Rogen in a small role for that, a dramatic role.
I'd watch Seth Rogen.
And what was the other movie that he did that I looked up? Another one that Franco, I think. Or was it Franco? I don't remember, but yeah, it was him. But I don't know if he directed it or he was just starring in it. But he got Danny McBride in it, and it was also a dramatic kind of role.
I would have loved to see that. Danny McBride. But I was talking. I don't remember why this came up, but someone was talking about This Is the End and how that might. And I was recommending if they watched the interview or not. They said, "Well, This Is the End has Danny McBride in it. Is he in the interview?" And I said, "Unfortunately, no." But I think I would have really liked if they'd cast him as King Jong-un.
Oh,
and he just played his character from Hot Rod and every other thing he's been in. Didn't even try an Asian accent or anything like that.
Well, Pineapple Express. Let's talk about that because obviously he's in that, and he to me was the funniest part in that.
I thought that was the interview was enjoyable enough. If you can see it for $6 especially instead of $20 in the theaters, I'd recommend it. But I thought Pineapple Express was still the best one I've seen of theirs. I don't know if it still holds up. I've seen it several times since it came out, but it came out around Tropic Thunder. I think if they didn't overlap, they were close, pretty similar.
Yeah, both of them had Danny McBride in it.
Both of them had Danny McBride in it. Yeah, they were. And I've seen Tropic Thunder several times since then, and it kind of loses a little bit every time. But most comedies kind of do.
Right.
But I thought they were a nice shift away from the Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell movies that had just been dominating everything.
Right.
They were both kind of different styles of comedy that.
Well, and I guess you could say, instead of it being Franco and Rogen, it's more of what's his name, Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen, because he kind of directs every. I think he directs.
He wrote
all
the interview
of them.
too.
Yeah, and then they write. They wrote Superbad together, and what was the Green Hornet or whatever he was in?
I didn't see Green Hornet.
I didn't either,
but
I think they both did that together too.
Yeah, I guess
and so obviously, Seth Rogen does more with him, I think, than James Franco does, but Franco and Rogen are obviously the faces of the franchise.
Watching the interview, I kind of felt at one point and it was just kind of the way Franco was acting. It's kind of the way he acts sometimes, is where he is just I'm assuming it's intentionally awkward and bad delivery.
Yeah.
But it really seemed at one point there was about a 7-minute scene where it was just Seth Rogen doing things.
Right.
And I was like, I kind of get the impression so far in this movie that James Franco, I know he said in an interview that he doesn't smoke weed anymore, which was surprising to me. But he had a good line where they were asking, well, how do you always look high in these movies? Like, I act like the wind is in my eyes, which I thought was effective. But I was kind of getting the feeling like, I kind of feel like this is a movie Seth Rogen like wanted to make, and he was willing to get James Franco to come along with him.
Right.
But as a result, he's having to do all of the other scenes, the ones that would require, because it was kind of stunt work, and he was walking across all these different, he was visiting China and doing all this like stuff that would have taken effort to film.
That was one thing I read about in the trivia section on IMDb for Pineapple Express, was that Seth Rogen wrote James Franco's role for him, but then I don't know why, but I guess he ended up giving it to Franco instead, which
I think that works.
I think they ended up flipping roles, basically. You know?
Yeah, he was that's weird. It would have been strange the other way.
Which you can kind of, I don't know, I can kind of picture it the other way.
Yeah.
James Franco being more of just the straight kind of normal guy, and then Rogen obviously being the pothead. But
I'm surprised they didn't, just kind of knowing them, I'm surprised they didn't just do some scenes where they just switched costumes, even if it was just some sort of like
now that'd been an interesting
DVD
movie.
release special. Yeah, like didn't Anchorman have like an entire alternate ending or enough takes where they made like a second movie out of it? I'd be disappointed that they didn't at least film some scenes.
Yeah, it was called Anchorman 2, and it was terrible.
Okay, I didn't even. Yeah, I liked Anchorman. Did not need to see, and even after 5 years, I don't need to see another one.
No,
I got my fill out of that.
Yeah, the second one's pretty bad. First one's good.
Well, I think that's something. I'm not even sure what comedy that's come out recently I would recommend. Comedy's hard, and making you can just look at anything I've ever made for evidence of that.
A good one, which I don't know if you would classify it as necessarily a comedy, but The Skeleton Twins with Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig is really good. It's probably more of a drama, but with the two of them in it, it's comedic.
That's often the way it is. It's hard to make like a kind of critically well received and big budget comedy. That's why most of them kind of end up being, Adam Sandler movies and Will Ferrell movies and things like that. But there are a lot of good kind of indie dramedies or black comedies and everything like that. But
well, why do you think Rogen and Franco have such a hold on the American public?
Do they have such a hold?
Not just with the interview, I don't think, but I just think people are so captivated by their relationship. I mean, the fact that the Bound 3 music video blew up the way it did, and even the Naked and Afraid thing, and the interview, I don't know if this was, like you said, if this was an Adam Sandler movie, I don't know if it would have been such a big deal as it is.
I hope not.
I don't know. I don't know if people would have really cared, even with the whole North Korea thing.
It was a fun movie. I do have their numbers, so I just want to shoehorn these in. Although I just dropped my notepad.
Oh gosh. Give him a second to grab it. All right.
Radio magic.
All right, he's back.
It seems like they at least were certainly expecting this to be a bigger movie. Pineapple Express, budget $25 million, box office $101 million, so they made their money back pretty good there. And that's not even taking into account like DVD sales and everything like that. This is the end, $32 million, box $126 million. So they gave him a bigger budget of $44 million this time. I guess I'm sure Sony was hoping to pull in at least $150 million.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see, because I think they certainly still have an appeal. I don't know if it's as much. I'm curious to see how this affects their next movie.
Yeah. Which I think that they're already, or at least I know, I looked at the IMDb thing for Seth Rogen, and it looked like, what was the new movie called?
And Goldberg are working on another one.
Yeah, something, I think it was called Sausage Party. Okay. Or at least that's like the working
title. I'm intrigued already.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's Franco involved or not, but yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff recently too where a lot of people are kind of referring to Seth Rogen as like the hardest working man in Hollywood and stuff, which I guess I can kind of see. I mean, he's writing all of these movies and obviously acting in them, and I'm sure he's involved with the edit and everything too.
That's something I'll definitely say. Even, I enjoyed the movie. It was perfectly fine as for someone who it's not necessarily the type of comedy I love, but I will certainly give them credit compared to, the Adam Sandler movies of any of the past ones.
Right.
I would say any of the ones he's ever done. I don't think any of them were ever very good. People are still like, well, Waterboy was great. And it's like, no, that movie wasn't either. But But
That's
at
a
least,
whole other episode because I could definitely debate you on that.
You'd be wrong. But at least like with Waterboy and some of that earlier stuff, it seemed like he cared remotely. And the recent work, he just doesn't put any work. It just seems like whatever he can shoot in a weekend and get his old failed SNL buddies a paycheck is good enough.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't like The Interview or didn't like Tropic Thunder or This Is the End, at least, there's certainly a lot of like effort and work put into it. There's a lot of money put into it as far as effects and sets and props, and they go to interesting locales. It's not lazy filmmaking. So
no,
even if I didn't love the movie, I would much rather see. Basically what I'm hoping is that I hope that the presumed financial failure of this movie, I doubt even if they get a theatrical release at this point, people are going to not be paying attention to it anymore.
Which I think I think I was reading that I think they are going to. Well, obviously they're in like the smaller theaters, like independent theaters and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen really with that on that end of. I mean, the whole money thing is obviously a whole separate issue, really. You know,
I hope Sony just kind of is willing to write this one off and not necessarily say that, okay, well, you guys lost us all this money, so we're not going to give you the budget you want for your next movie.
Right.
I kind of hope they get another chance, even if I'm not necessarily a huge fan of all their work.
So which of those films and Freaks and Geeks, you can include that in it too, which one is your favorite?
Well, Freaks and Geeks would be my favorite of all of them. But again, that was something I watched as it was airing. I was young at the time. I was probably like the age of the younger set of the geeks. I was kind of a geek then too, so I was like, I can bond with these guys.
Right.
I grew up in the '80s or whatever, but I was like, man, Dungeons and Dragons. I wasn't that geeky, so I was still cooler than them. But no, that was definitely, I thought, the best one. And I guess I'll even roll in like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Zack and Miri make a porno. All those. I think if I were to watch one again, it'd probably be Pineapple Express. I think I recently saw some clips of that one. It was on TV or something, and I just happened to see a little bit of it. Yeah, that one, I would say that's the funniest one. Yeah, it's got...
Freaks and Geeks is definitely the best, but obviously they were just acting in it. You know, they didn't really have much to say as far as the creative
16-year-old James Franco probably wasn't too heavily involved.
But, I mean, they were still really good in it. Just like you said, they were so believable and so honest in their roles. And the writing was really funny and everything.
Here's an alumni from Freaks and Geeks. I can't tell you the guy's name, but he was the autistic person in Freaks and Geeks who they pick on. He didn't have many moments or anything like that. But if you've ever seen 3:10 to Yuma, have you seen 3:10 to Yuma?
Yeah.
Great cowboy movie. Charlie something.
Oh.
He's the little sidekick.
Yeah, Charlie Hunnam or whatever.
Yeah, whatever his name is. The sidekick.
He's the one in Sons of Anarchy, isn't he?
Perhaps.
Isn't he the lead role in Sons of Anarchy?
If he is, he played the autistic kid in Freaks and Geeks. So the next time I saw him,
there you go.
Was the savage second in command villain of 3:10 to Yuma, and then he was also in another action movie.
Oh no! You're thinking of Ben Foster.
Ben Foster, exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Ben Foster.
But I did read that earlier. I think I read that Charlie Hunnam was in Freaks and Geeks also. What was he? I don't remember.
Who's Charlie?
But he's the Sons of Anarchy lead.
I don't know who he would have been. Maybe he was Ben Foster's brother.
Ben Foster. That's right. Yeah, he was. He was really good.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good movie. But yeah, so he was the fifth person I couldn't think of that was a success for Freaks and Geeks.
There you go.
Yeah,
and I know the other ones. I'm sure they're still doing something.
Yeah. Those guys are. The blonde girl. Remember the blonde girl from Freaks and Geeks? She's actually, I think she might have been.
She has been in stuff. What was her name?
Dude, nobody knows what her name is. Her and then like the sister. I saw the sister.
The sister has been in, else. Yeah, she has been in some stuff.
More. I think she might have actually not been high school age.
And I think actually she does like voices for something.
You're right.
The Simpsons or Futurama or something.
Yeah, that's probably it.
I don't remember.
So, they haven't all had the same great success as Siegel and Franco and Rogen, but...
Well, yeah, like you said, I think it'll be interesting to see what Franco and Rogen come up with next. I don't know. I think even these little, whatever you want to call them, digital shorts or commercials or whatever these little spoof kind of things, it just blows my mind how many views those things get. And obviously they're two huge celebrities, and Franco is, an Oscar-nominated actor and stuff, but I don't know. It is kind of funny, just their relationship. the two of them together are so much stronger than either one of them separate.
Yeah, Franco's interesting. I'm not sure what of his is an act. He does all the kind of like, he'll do a dramatic role and he'll do like a weird art piece film where it's him destroying a room for 4 minutes and then he walks out. But then he'll still do these movies.
Well, and he has like his doctorate and stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he either got it or he was at least back in school during while I was moving.
Yeah, and I don't remember which one it was, but I was reading that. I think what was it? It might have been the interview. But I was reading that somebody was saying that, like, on set, he was, like, reading, like, the Iliad or something, like, in between takes.
I'm not surprised. And he is a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I want to say him and Stephen Colbert have had interplays of duels and knowledge tests and things like that in the past.
Really? I didn't know that.
He's clearly a smart guy. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can come up with next. I mean, obviously, they're more of, like, the vulgar, pot-smoking, stupid bro comedy types, but
and there wasn't too much horrible, like, dumb, gross out stuff. I mean, there was some of it, and again, there were the what will be very dated pop culture references and celebrity cameos and everything like that.
And that's kind of Seth Rogen's, MO sort of.
Yeah, but overall, I guess in summation, it's worth if you have $6 and you don't want to go to the theaters because you don't want to go see The Hobbit: Battle of Five Armies.
Good choice.
I'm not sure it's bad. I'm not so sure it's bad. I watched the second one a couple
and you liked that
ago.
one?
Not really.
Well, then the third one's got to be great.
It was better than the first one, maybe.
I need to go back and watch the whole first one and the second one.
You should probably just wait until someone makes a supercut where they take out all the
that'd be nice
stuff.
because I really don't want to waste like an entire day watching these 3 movies.
Yeah, you could just wait. There'll be one. There's already one that combines the first 2 movies and cuts out a lot of stuff. I'm always interested in those projects. People have done it for the Star Wars prequels, where they still try and cobble those together and make a movie that's still good. But the problem is the core is still rotten.
Right.
There's not just because you cut out Jar Jar and the Gungans doesn't necessarily mean that now it's good.
I'm kidding.
Need to stop.
Pod racing.
You just need to stop. No. Pod racing was the best part of all the other garbage that Lucas added, and it was still terrible.
Oh, gosh.
Before we get on a tangent, though, where I start complaining about the prequels again.
Well, coming up in the next few episodes, we're going to talk about some fun things. I'd like to get into Christopher Nolan's work a little bit. I'd like to sell out. I'd like to talk about Breaking Bad soon.
Hack.
Okay.
What are we going to talk about? Like Rocco's Modern Life and stuff. Cool stuff the kids want to hear about.
Well, you tell me.
That show was also hacky.
I'm all about Little Monsters
Bad,
or whatever that show is
all
called.
Real Monsters. You had a jar of toenails and stuff. And
is that what that show was called?
All Real Monsters, right?
Okay.
I mean, maybe there was something called Little Monsters, too.
I don't know.
If you're thinking of like that weird era.
The guy who holds the eyeballs up.
Yeah, and he holds the eyeballs.
Okay.
And there's the other one, and Ren and Stimpy, and
well, maybe we need to have a old school Nickelodeon flashback day or something.
I want to meet somebody who has somewhere there's a podcast that just is talking about that era of Nickelodeon cartoons, and I want to listen to it because it's probably the most depressing thing.
Yeah.
Hey Arnold and
depressing, like because you want to be a kid again, or depressing just because those shows were depressing?
Depressing because people shouldn't be talking about those anymore. Even though I am now, doesn't need to be done.
Well, as always, you can go on to popcultureisdumb.com. Do we got any cool stuff up there?
We have.
The answer is no.
Some really cool stuff. I made a post about our Christmas episode, which... let's do a recap. If you haven't listened to all the other episodes, if you're only catching in because of the relevance of this. Episode 1, what did we talk about, Zach?
We talked about Walking Dead.
That's right.
We talked about the Foo Fighters, Taylor Swift, Spotify fight that went down.
That's double right. Episode 2, we had 2 Vine celebrities.
Yep.
Jeff Cyrus and...
Yep.
Sorry, Jay Cyrus. And Charlie Classic
Jay
on.
Cyrus, get it right.
We talked about the impact of social media.
Yep.
And then we... completely failed on using social media to our benefit. Everything after that.
Yep.
Episode 3, was that the American Horror Story one?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, we had good old our friend Stephen Cook, who's probably weeping into a pillow right now because his Florida State Seminoles.
That's what we should talk about next. We should get into some football stuff.
We could. We'll wait till We could do it for the national championship game, and people could listen to me make up stuff like I know about football. And then we did the best Christmas movie, Sweet 16.
Yep.
Where I've had many people run into me and tell me that I was right and you were wrong, and Santa Claus is a bad movie and did not deserve to be on our list.
Well, they are idiots. How do you like me now?
I rewatched A Christmas Story on Christmas Eve and realized how much better that movie is.
Yeah.
And I also realized that I was completely wrong, and the big troll, Sweetums, is not in that movie.
Sweetums?
His name, I think, is Sweetums, and he's like a giant troll.
That's the candy company on Parks and Rec.
I know, and
Sweetums.
I could have that wrong. I'm 90% sure it's Sweetums. He's not in that movie at all.
That does not sound right.
It's
you
right.
were thinking of the Ghost of Christmas Present or whatever, weren't you?
I thought, okay, I didn't think Sweetums was that guy. You thought I was talking about him. You would have been right, because Sweetums is not in this movie. I thought he was in the background. I must have been thinking about Treasure Island. But it reaffirmed that movie was clearly the best.
Yeah.
Clearly the best
Spoiler alert for our podcast. That was our number one.
That was our number one. And then we did a top 14 things of 2014 just last week, even though we recorded it like a month ago.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have to say that.
No. I'm breaking the magic. But yeah, check it all out.
On iTunes.
On iTunes,
obviously.
search Pop Culture is Dumb. On Twitter, Pop Culture is Dumb without the B. Facebook, just search Pop Culture is Dumb. You can figure it out. You're smart. We're gonna have a YouTube channel. We're gonna put up our old podcasts. They won't be day and date because we still want you guys to subscribe on iTunes.
Subscribe and
share
leave reviews.
If you're gonna leave a review, if it's not gonna be 5 stars, don't bother, because if it's anything besides 5 stars, it hurts us. So don't do that. If you listen this far and you're really mad and you're going to leave a negative review,
then write it on a piece of paper, fold the paper up, put it in an envelope, and throw it away.
Throw it away and you'll feel better. Just write out your thoughts. I don't know what anyone could possibly be that mad about on this episode. But
well, there might be some super hardcore Steve Buscemi fans out there that don't like the way we said he's not a great comedic actor.
Well,
or what did we say about him?
I mean, his best role was Con Air. So
was he in that?
He was the pedophile.
Oh, gosh.
He was
oh, boy.
It was creepy.
Oh, boy. Well, it's been fun.
Has it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe if I was watching the interview, I'd have some fun. Zing.
You'd have a little bit of fun. You'd have like a thumb up and a half. I would give the interview...
thumb up and a half.
It would be... it's a quesarito. A quesarito on the Taco Bell scale of good. Crunchwrap, of course, being 5.
Yep.
Soft shell taco with
bean burrito,
with just beef would be 1.
Bean burrito, no onions, no red sauce. That's my standard.
That is just beans. I could make you that.
There's cheese in there.
There's
a little bit of cheese in there.
Why don't you just get pintos and cheese?
Yeah.
They sell that, and that's better.
I'm not a monster.
Oh my god. Although, yeah, now that pintos and cheese is just deconstructed Taco Bell ingredients, isn't it?
Pretty much.
I used to pay money for that.
Well, on that note, let's wrap it up here. This has been Pop Culture is Dumb. I'm Zach Eagles.
I'm Jackson Miller.
And go watch the interview. Bye-bye.
We're done.